I will start by um, highlighting the global efforts at the UN level that we have been doing to create this creative ecosystem that is sustainable and that is pro-development, pro-economic development. So what I wanted to let you know, I think is a good time to say that we are here in great part because of this resolution that the Indonesia led in 2018, and this is one way of creating an ecosystem, because it is important not only to have individual efforts, national efforts, but we have heard over this conference how important it is to have a world effort, globally. We need data and we need to share information, and in order to have an ecosystem, we need to share experiences and have this exercise on having global efforts at the UN level, which is one of the main, I would say, our main tools to launch global efforts. So the Indonesia, with their leadership, put forward this solution on the International Year of Creative Economy. And this was a landmark agreement, and I think it's a perfect example of how we can build a global ecosystem, creative ecosystem, how we did it, and how we can continue doing it. So I will start by giving you some tidbits or some little highlights of this resolution and what it means from a substantial point of view. So one of the key things that the resolution does at the UN level is that all countries recognize that we need to support all countries, including in particular developing countries and countries with economies in transition, in diversifying production, exports, including new sustainable growth areas, such as creative industries. The resolution recommits member states and countries to transition progressively to higher productive capacity and higher value-added sectors, including the cultural and creative industries, in a sustainable manner, meaning we need to also be aware of the environment. So it touches upon the three main pillars: social, environmental, and economic. Recognizes that the resolution recognizes that the international community should support national efforts of developing countries to increase the participation in and benefit from the dynamic sectors of the economy, such as the creative economy, and encourage the UN entities and all entities to work together to implement the International Year of Creative Economy. So this is what we have been doing together this year. So just to give you an example, when this resolution was launched, I thought, well, okay, nobody, it is important for the UN, but is the world listening? We posted a photo of the Indonesian ambassador at the General Assembly, welcoming the approval of the resolution of the creative economy. And we posted on Facebook. We generally get 25 likes, if maximum. Well, this post with the ambassador of Indonesia welcoming the International Year of Creative Economy got 6,000 likes for us. This was surprising. This means that there were people there, not only the UN, but people there, the audience, that really welcomed this resolution. Not only did they welcome them, but they acted upon it. And this year has been an incredible joint effort of collaborative efforts with research, with technical cooperation process, with events, that really, not only by the UN, but other organizations. So let me tell you what we have, the UN has been doing, the UNCTAD, the UNESCO, and other institutions have been working together this year. We have been working with member states, with you, to coordinate events and deepen relationships. Two, we forged new relationships and partnerships that can advance global work in and on the creative industries. We capitalized the International Year of Creative Economy to focus on research and promote selected substantive deliveries for sectors of importance for developing countries in the creative sector. We raise awareness of the importance of creative economy and the role it can play in advancing sustainable development and in overcoming the crisis brought about by COVID. So having a creative economy strategy has become one of the key strategies for many developing countries to recover from COVID. And we put the spotlight on the UN work, but also on the national member states' efforts that have been doing during this year on creative economy. So how we showcase what are the main deliverables that this international year at the UN level, in the case of UNCTAD, we produce. And they are very, very striking. We share a roadmap of events planned on, like this one, on creative economy with different UN institutions. And the cooperation with UN institutions has been incredible. We carried out, UNCTAD, when I say we, I said UNCTAD carried out about 4 major events with other UN institutions and with member states, all about creative economy, promoting and creating consensus and sharing practices and best practices. This has been resulted in a lot of policy recommendations that are at the service of on different issues, from crafts to high-level new technologies. So this has been produced a set of recommendations that are very important. We also work on working groups of economists from developing countries in different regions, including with Asia and with the UAE, to actually start thinking about a new classification of creative economies in order to be able to get the data that is, to improve the data worldwide that is necessary. We have also worked with the UN agencies to see how we can coordinate this better. We have also worked with an interagency working group to actually work together on actions among UN agencies. And I really like to emphasize again the work that UNCTAD, UNESCO have been taking forward together in this regard. We also have participating in the T20 task force. And this had been, as you know, the T20 for the first time has a strong mandate on culture, but also on creative industries and tourism. This is a work that we hope to carry out over next year. And we, UNCTAD, hopefully will produce some new research to support the working groups of the G20, for example, through policy brief on creative industries and tourism. At the same time, also on the new digital economy and the 4.0 revolution. All this research is policy-oriented research that we hope to put to the service of the G20 and the member states, the UN member states in general, and we hopefully will help member states, but also the public sector and other international institutions to take up work on creative industries. We also launched a survey on creative industries worldwide, and we were able to get very good common shared information, which will be published next year. So I think we hopefully to continue that work and build on this survey year by year. And again, with this way, just creating more data and accurate data that will be service for everybody to consult. And I would say finally, a big delivery is the continuation, or what are the continuation of the UN resolution. The one key deliverable from the UN resolution was that the resolution asked UNCTAD in cooperation with UNESCO and other UN agencies to present a report to the General Assembly on the implementation of the resolution. And we have been coordinating with US agencies, and we have working on this report, and hopefully we will submit this report next year. We hope that this has created a new momentum to continue the work on the resolution of creative economy in the second committee in the macroeconomic agenda. So I think this was a very important vision that a country like Indonesia put forward to the service of the world. We all took up the challenge, and I think it's a good example of how all these efforts, collaborative efforts, can help us to build and continue working on more work on creative economy. I will stop here, and I thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you so much, Marisa, for your report. I think it's I'm very happy to hear about the progress, on how you support and UNCTAD support the creative economy development during this creative year. So and you actually emphasize about data, and the importance of it. So looking forward for your next work. Thank you so much, Marisa. So as I mentioned earlier about the importance of IP, now let us hear about how to actually manage the IP ecosystem. Yeah, IP as the one of the very important aspect of the creative ecosystem. So I'm going to welcome our next speaker, Dimitar Ganchev, PhD, as WIPO Copyright and Creative Industry Sector, all the way from Geneva. Okay, Dimitar, time is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Marisa, for setting the stage for this discussion. I would like to first congratulate our hosts, the United Arab Emirates, for staging this great event under these difficult circumstances. It has been a tremendous success, and I'm looking forward to reading the final reports for the outcomes of this conference. Of course, I'd like to congratulate also Indonesia and the work of the GCINC, which is organizing this particular session today. I've had the pleasure of working with Indonesia on creative industries for many years, and I've seen how they advance on this exciting agenda. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the creative industries and the creative economy have really become the buzzwords today. Just before this session, I found out that there is about 3.4 billion hits on the word creative economy. You can imagine what kind of an incredible outreach potential this term has. People connect to it, people talk about it, and we are now in a moment of time when the attention is so big that we need to capitalize on this. We don't know for how long. I mean, something else may come a few years from now, so we have to use that moment when creative economy is really at the center of attention of everyone. The power of this concept, in my view, is in its very multidisciplinary character. It's a horizontal issue. It's not just one ministry. It's not just intellectual property, trade, culture. It's everything. It's education. It's commerce. Everything has a role to play in this. And indeed, I am extremely fond, and I've been working on research, which Marisa mentioned. And research seems to indicate that the creative economy indeed is becoming the driver of development. With over 5% of the GDP and the employment in the countries where we have carried out research, it certainly indicates that development is very much linked to the performance of the creative sector. And I'm pleased to say that we are cooperating with the government of the United Arab Emirates right now to implement such a research and produce some solid data, which is so needed if you want to do serious policy making in this area. Now, creativity is, of course, something that all nations have, and everybody is creative in one way or another, but that is not sufficient to translate it into economic returns. You do need a certain environment, a certain ecosystem whereby you can monetize on this creativity and you can bring your product to the market. Of course, if you are a creator who just wants to create for the sake of art and you're not interested in the market, that doesn't bother you. But in case you are interested in that, there needs to be a certain environment which supports that. Now, what are some of the key elements, in my view, of this environment, of this ecosystem, which needs to be in place? The first and the most crucial element, of course, is that we have creative people. Let's not forget that without the creators, without the free flow of creative ideas, which the political establishment must ensure, there will be no creative industry in the country. So we must make sure that creators have the right conditions to work and that there is enough creative output. The second element, which I would highlight, is the regulatory framework. You do need a framework in order for creators to be able to operate. You need to have a clarity on the system of property rights in society, because if there's no clear right of ownership over your creative product, unfortunately, it cannot enter into any kind of economic transactions. So that needs to be clear. You need to have a system also which clarifies and regulates the market transactions. How will they play out in society? I would say that the copyright framework is providing us with this market framework. It tells you what you can do on the market and what you cannot do. What is it allowed? What are you allowed to do? And what are the issues where you need to seek permissions? So you do need this kind of traffic lights, which is provided by the market framework, which copyright gives us. I think that it is very important also to recognize the role of the intermediaries. Without intermediaries, sometimes your product cannot reach the market. It can be a collective management organization, it could be an internet service provider. Different kinds of intermediaries are there. They do play an enormous role. Collective management organization document your works, they license them, they collect the royalties for the performances of your work, and then they distribute them. So this is an important element of the infrastructure which needs to be in place. And of course, WIPO's mission is to support the efforts of the countries to build up this infrastructure and make sure that it operates on the same terms as in the rest of the world, so that you can participate into global transactions. Of course, there are lots of technical components which also need to be in place in this creative economy infrastructure. Just think about every creative work which travels around the world in the digital space. It needs to have its digital passport. It needs to have an identifier which identifies the specific work, so that transfers of ownership can take place or licensing rules can be respected, so that payments can be made. Each work must be identifiable, and there are plenty of identifiers, and they need to be used. I think that the next important element of the infrastructure, which I believe we must make sure is in place, that is the broad understanding in society of the value of creative works. You see, creators need to be remunerated, otherwise they will find something else to do. And this is a two-way street. On the one hand, you need to educate creators on what are their rights and how can they best manage them. And we have a wonderful project in WIPO, which we are launching, WIPO for Creators. But on the other hand, you need to educate also society and the consumers that everything has a certain price and that you need to respect that. It is not just free product, you need to pay for that. And there are interesting ways that you can do that and still make it possible for more creative output to be produced. I think that we also need to ensure that there are links to the global systems. We speak that the world is becoming a big village now, and it is very much true. Your product, especially creative products, they travel across boundaries. There are no boundaries in the internet, and very difficult to remain just nationally focused. But in order to do that, you must ensure that your country legislation, that the technical parameters which exist in the country do allow these links to global networks. I can give you an example. There are countries on the planet which still cannot have access to Spotify, which is a very important subscription service for music, and it is a legal alternative which can actually provide you with access to creative content. Subscriptions is a very popular business model. But what if in that country, unfortunately, this platform is not operating? There are various kind of restrictions, etc. So you need to make sure that when you tell people that they need to observe the social order, that they need to subscribe for this, you need to make sure that this alternative exists in society. So, and that is the responsibility, of course, of governments and of the international community. I would like to say, I started off saying that this is an interdisciplinary issue and it is the responsibility of many different institutions. There is no super ministry which can do everything which is needed for the creative economy. It's a matter of coordination, because we are not talking about some parallel economy. It's just another way of looking at the real economy which exists out there. We're just selecting the drivers, and one of these drivers, of course, is the intellectual property-based model for generating income for the creators. So no super institution can do that. It's a matter of coordination, both nationally and internationally. So I think I will stop there to leave some space for my colleagues on the panel. And as Marisa, I'm also looking forward to your interesting question and to engage in a discussion with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Dimitar. So I learned a lot. So we can learn from Dimitar presentations that inside the creative ecosystem itself, it's also an ecosystem for the IP itself, yeah, from the creators until the connections for global system. Very important. I really appreciate that WIPO already have WIPO for creators. So congratulations. Hope it could be one of the solutions for creators all around the world. Thank you so much, Dimitar. So. I think we also need to hear other perspective from Sandra Tusin. Sandra is a venture capital and also a co-founder of Mindstream.ai. And I believe her expertise is in startup funding and how to build a startup. Yeah, will enrich the perspective of creative ecosystem. Okay, I think Sandra, time is yours.
Hi, yeah, thank you. So do you have my slides up or should I just speak?
Yeah, yeah. You just say next for the next slide.
Okay, sure. So yeah, so I'm just going to talk about creating an inclusive ecosystem and how I did that by creating my startup, why that was so important, and my vision and how I got there. So onto slide 2. So here's just like a bit of my profile and my background. So I'm the founder of Mindstream.ai. So it's an innovation and venture company focused on health tech and AI. So we run a lot of accelerator programs and also innovation for different corporations. And now we're branching into blockchain. So we help to fund different health tech projects across the UK. Right now, currently in Stevenage and also across King's Cross. And before that, I used to also be an investment banker and was also a chartered accountant. And currently, I also work for a VC firm raising money in crypto and the metaverse. So it's very on-topic things. So our vision. So why did I create Mindstream.ai? So why I wanted to do that was because I saw there was a big gap in the diversity within the artificial intelligence sector and the data science sector. And that's globally, not just in the UK. So the amount of women or ethnic minorities within this group was, there's a big gap. And we thought we could kind of bridge that with our connections. And so what we did was first create the ecosystem, and then we saw how to kind of bring all the players together. So that's why creating an inclusive ecosystem with different partners different stakeholders on board was so important to be able to drive the mission forward. And so, yeah, so this again, next page on what was the thought process. So we saw there was a gap in the market, and then there was a lot of passion and demand actually from corporations wanting to bridge this gap. So we kind of got onto that and tried to do something about it, really. So to slide 5. So yeah, so this was the kind of ecosystem we created around London, around the UK. So you can see here, we tried to create this inclusive knowledge economy. So we got partnered up with the Corporation of London. Also in Stevenage, we reached out to the big data science and health tech hub in Stevenage. We also created a super cluster of different organizations around King's Cross. And so you can see kind of the products we did there. So there was the KQ Labs Accelerator, and also the Q Labs Accelerator, where we focused on accelerating AI drug companies. Also the Global Recovery Accelerator, trying to make a global impact sustainability accelerator, trying to fund impact projects around the world. And so you can see here, we needed a lot of different partners, a lot of people to work together to be able to get our outcomes. We couldn't do this alone. It had to be an effort from different organizations like the Wellcome Trust, like the Turing Institute. So to me, to be able to be very creative and get our missions out there, we really had to collaborate. Getting an ecosystem together is not easy. So I'll talk about that more in the next few slides. So the next slide, this is about the inclusive knowledge economy. So this is what we were trying to create in King's Cross. So just to give some context, in London there really isn't, there are a lot of disparate groups. So there's a lot of tech and innovation happening in Shoreditch area. That's kind of like the Silicon Roundabout of London, or within King's Cross, where Facebook and Google have moved into. But there are a lot of like areas nearby, right next to them, and they don't have like access to these kind of hubs. So it's very disparate, and that was the thing that we saw, and that's what also corporates saw, and they wanted to kind of bridge this. And so why is this needed? It's needed because with a more diverse and inclusive kind of ecosystem, there's more viewpoints. It's actually, there's evidence that it's very, very beneficial for corporations to have a more diverse board membership, for example. So to be able to upskill and train people at the start, at the funnel, will lead to that and lead to more diverse, a diverse ecosystem and diverse corporations in the future, which is very beneficial. And so, yeah, so these are the kind of service streams that we did at Mindstream to kind of, drive our ethos. So we did innovation and acceleration and venture capital. So we kind of targeted like startups who are within health, within kind of the sustainability impact area, and also trying to target diverse teams with women, BAME in the mix. And then also we created an academy and a hub. So when we saw there was maybe like demand or it was needed, we did in-person courses or online classes to upskill people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So trying to create them, get them more into this ecosystem and create more of, a lot of synergies between players. And then we also did ad hoc consultancy, so creating proof of concepts for different startups or different corporate clients. And here's just an example, the next slide on innovation leadership. So here's just an example of, we ran like hackathons, accelerators, different things, depending on the different client or what kind of innovation they needed. And yeah, so the next slide on the traction. So yeah, so we managed to partner with some of the largest institutions in the UK and we developed 2 accelerator programs to fund startups with our kind of diversity ethos. We ran KQ Labs and also Data in Stevenage. And we also ran an upskilling data science program around London to try to get more people who don't have a background in data science but want to get into it, who don't really have the formal training, to upskill them and really get the kind of vocational skills. And so here, so yeah, so next slide, this is the ecosystem that we created. So these are the partners and clients we have. So you can see we had a broad set of partners. We had educational institutions like UCL working with us, Imperial, the Crick Institute. Then we also had the community side. So we had like Camden Council, and on the commercial side, we had big tech firms like IQVIA, Benevolent AI, and DeepMind. And then you can see there, we had Healthquake and PyTorch. So these are kind of our community events that we held every month to bring community players all together. So that's what I was trying to get to be able to bring the ecosystem together, we had to give value first. So we didn't just overnight create an ecosystem of players. What we did was for a couple of years, we were just, just making a lot of events, like creating like monthly deep tech events, like doing like industry dinners before actually branching off and then gaining all their support to make the accelerators and the data courses happen. So it took quite a long time, but you can see how the importance of like bringing the ecosystem together is for innovation. Because once we had the kind of the community on our side, when we wanted to do something, it was very easy to collaborate because we already gave value to the ecosystem through our events and through the networking we provided to our different partners. And on the next slide, on the current ecosystem building. So yeah, so now we're doing more into the kind of NFT side. So this is a very trendy side. It's the metaverse, it's blockchain. As we know, Facebook changed their name into Meta. And so what we've done now is, created a whole brand of new events that we're trying to build a new ecosystem of players within the NFT blockchain space. So we created some events called NFT Soho. So we're doing those monthly, and then we're trying to get the biggest industry players together in this NFT space. And we're going to do the same thing. We want to do an NFT impact project, creating kind of like a VC NFT impact group. So yeah, that's super exciting, and that's in the pipeline. And yeah, that's why to me, creating an ecosystem is very important for innovation. I think that's how you leverage on each other. I think it's all about collaboration, which is super important. And so on the next page, I just wanted to give some tips on things to consider when creating a product or service. I always think, give people what they want, and think about the demand and gaps in the market. Also, what specialist skills can you bring to the table that other people might not have? What is your USP? And then also start with a minimum viable product, test it out, does it work? And yes, collaborate. I think collaboration is very, very key. It's much more easier with two heads, two bright minds, and better than your own. Always hire people who are smarter than you. It's easier when you have a talented team. And then, so how to build that kind of ecosystem. I think what's so important is thinking about the network effect. Think of how much value being the first mover that there is. So when a network effect is present, the value of a product or service increases according to the number of others using it. So the more of your network you have, the more valuable it is. It's kind of like Facebook. It's so valuable right now because everyone uses it. No one really uses MySpace or anything. So super important to build a big network. And yeah, it didn't take, it took a long time. Sometimes we were providing events and training for free. And yeah, so you kind of have to make that upfront investment with your time sometimes. And yeah, and then, yeah, so the last slide, what creates a company that others want to invest in? Passionate founders, be passionate, product differentiation, and a significant market size, if you can see the potential in the market. So yeah, thank you so much. I hope that was like a run through of what we've been doing and how we try to create an inclusive ecosystem.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sandra, for your comprehensive presentations. Yeah, I think this is one of the good examples on how ecosystem could help. Yeah, the emergence of many good startups. Okay, so last but not least, I think research and education is also one of the important factors, yeah, for building the creative ecosystem. So now we have Sony Roostyaadi, PhD, as one of the GCINC head of experts and also a lecturer and researcher in Institut Teknologi Bandung, one of the prominent universities in Indonesia. So Pak Sony, time is yours.
Thank you very much, Dina. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining this online and offline. And it is my honor to share this incredible opportunity with this distinguished panel of speakers, yeah, Marisa, Dimitar, and Sandra. The committee has informed me I have 7 minutes to cram up everything that we have done for the past 2 years, and I hope you will enjoy my explanation. Okay, thank you very much again for the opportunity. Let me again remind that Global Center of Excellence and International Cooperation in Creative Economy actually was one of the message from the first World Conference on Creative Economy back in 2018. At that time, there was a need from all the friends of creative economy, more than 50 countries attending the event. And one of the message of Bali Agenda is to create a focal point. So that's becoming our vision to become global focal point. For sure, there are three role there or three function that we would like to serve as global focal point. First is for sure in research and development. Second is acceleration, and third is to nurture international cooperation. For sure, the goal is to support global creative economic growth. Within this mission, capacity and capability building is one of the foremost mission that we actually endure. The second would be how we can actually accelerate the upstream and downstream industry for all global creative actors. As we know that the world is now limitless and boundless. So for sure, the creative economy, as Dimitri has example about Spotify, about other platform that created this huge opportunity for creative economy and creative player entrepreneurs to have more access to global market. And then access to information, lesson learned, and best practice. We actually have created our hub in terms of website that we have always update on whatever information. For sure, we also nurture networkings with other creative players and ecosystem player, as Sandra has explained, the importance of ecosystem within a successful flow of creative products. And the fourth is also for, because we are talking about global partnership and collaboration would become one of the avenues of working together. My next slide would be what we imagine what Global Center of Excellence and International Cooperation growth would be. So we saw when we actually talk with various stakeholders of the industry that perhaps there will be 3 steps of strength extension and expansion that we need to have before we can cascade the program from our vision and mission. So research, as Dina says, is one of our important activity. That is why a lot of the pentahelix player of the ecosystem for the creative economy is actually what we engage for the past probably 1 or 2 years. Networking and partnership acceleration and also capacity building. The next slide would explain a brief milestone of our activity. So we've done 2 big researches. The first is how we can actually, as we think that the creative ecosystem are born from a healthy creative scene, whereby the creative scene would be very organically driven growth for creative entrepreneurs. And the second research that we have done actually about how we can assess the potential of a creative player within a regional point of view. I will explain that later on. We also do a lot of expert series in terms of many topics important for the creative players. So virtual incubation, and then how we can accelerate and reach the global stage for this creative player. Also how we can actually nurture the creative scene where creative player actually then becoming more established in their works. For sure, we also look at the creative economy as not only about the future, but also the roots of the people that actually elaborate their creative artifact within their own culture, within their own community, and to connect that to their own future. And then how we can actually see how a resilient ecosystem then will nurture this creative economy player. In the next slide, probably I'm just going to go through this. There are several international forums that we have done in terms of conferences and also seminars. When in fact, although COVID-19 have bring us a lot of challenges, GCINC actually we saw it as the opportunity for us to connect. Just like today, we are connected from various countries from all around the world using technology. So a lot of our international forum is actually enabled by the disruption that COVID has offered. Next would be we also have a virtual exhibition for creative economy in the side event of the United Nations Economic and Social Council ECOSOC Assembly early in 2021. So we also connect this as a matchmaking event, display and of our ecosystem player, not only from Indonesia, again, GCINC, although it is initiated by Indonesia, but also we are working with various international agency, WIPO, ANGSAD, but also with other countries around the globe. So the Let's Connect exhibition was almost 100 ecosystem player actually participated, creating videos to showcase their work. The next slide would be our several expert series that we periodically do for the past, I don't know, 1 to 2 years back. Yeah. So every other month we actually held a GCINC expert series to share knowledge from global players and also best practices from various sectors of the creative industry. So we have almost 1, 2, 3, and then the next slide will be 4 and 5. We also have 6 and 7. However, I think what we actually wanted to talk this afternoon is actually the role of research and education as an important part of building a creative ecosystem. Allow me to explain and highlight our 2 research that we have done. The first is GCINC research on creative scene. Again, this is although a lot of the case example actually coming from Indonesia, but also we look other countries around the region. We look at Philippines, we look at Thailand, etc., etc. So we see that in these many countries, at least with the countries that we have researched in 2020, that support from ecosystem come from creative scene actually. So this creative scene serve as a ecosystem, early ecosystem for a creative player. So a healthy creative scene need to actually nurture in terms of how we can not only identify new talents for creative entrepreneurs, but also to sustain a community in terms of its creative potential. Our last research, next slides, is in 2021 with again looking at the regional level of how creative economy opportunities is being explored, not only by government but also its ecosystem, but how we can actually learn from different, as we know that creative economy have many definition between countries. Indonesia have 17 subsector, for example. Other countries will have 20 or less than 17. But this diverse definition actually leading towards the support of government to this creative potential that the company has. So we saw that the creative annual average of growth rate, for example, in the ASEAN region, amounting to 9% and almost 12% for the export and the import. Other sector of the creative economy, for example, in publishing, in visual art, although in terms of its part of the whole creative economy may not be as big as perhaps the other bigger, for example, art and design, but it's also showing a positive trend in the region of ASEAN. We also in this book, although because this is we have just finished a few weeks back, so it's still in Indonesia, but we are in the process of translating to English so that this can be accessed. And this research actually how we can actually meet the expectation of the creative economy players. Three things that we actually identify, what we call the three C's, crowdsourcing, customization, and co-creation that can help this creative economy not only becoming an opportunity, but also realizing its potential and having an impact not only for the country, but more specifically, we can hear the voices of the creative players, the creative entrepreneurs that actually very important for the healthy creative economy of a nation. I hope I make it in 7 minutes. I also invite all the audience to visit our website, as the website is actually a guide, a gateway for us to work together in terms of capacity and capabilities, promote links, education, and also access to best practices and this range of body of research and knowledge from various agencies, global agencies, national agencies that we would like to connect together in this Global Center for Excellence. I thank again the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Indonesia and the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy for the support for the Global Center of Excellence and International Cooperation for Creative Economy. But also, I also would like to extend collaboration invitation to all the creative ecosystem players out there. We have collaborated with in various opportunities with WIPO and UNCTAD and all the other global organization. For sure, we would like to have a global center that actually benefit all the ecosystem players. I thank you. With that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Pak Sony, for your very brief explanation about GCINC. So I think this is the end of the session. So before we're going to close the sessions, I'd like to conclude that this ecosystem give us many benefits. First, it can give access to many capacity and capabilities. It also give some capacity to scale up and also help us to become more flexible and resilient. However, we cannot build this ecosystem alone. So that's why here we invite you to collaborate with GCINC, yeah, by going to our websites and join us as an expert or join us as a community. And together we can connect and we can build this ecosystem for not only nationally but also globally. And we can share resources, we can share data, we can share knowledge and many things. So I guess this is one of the invitations that we are really humbled to invite you to become part of our ecosystem. So again, thank you so much for all the speakers, for your time, and actually for your knowledge. Yeah, and I guess me myself, I learned a lot from all of your explanation and presentations. I hope all the participants also feel the same thing. So see you again in GCINC next event. Thank you so much.
Thank you.